Bien, mi gente, welcome to the podcast of Los Clecas del Deporte. And here we're going to talk about the best World Baseball Classic in history. Is that a correct statement, Shawn?
That's what I would say. We knew it would be before the WBC started, and I think it absolutely lived up to that.
Yeah, so we're here with Shawn Spradling from Baseball is Never Boring podcast and WBC Central. And we have here the sniper, Juan Carlos, who was one of the few people who predicted Mexico would win the group. So at least he has he has that in his resume, right? And let's jump right into it. We got some events of the World Baseball Classic, and we will rank them according to these categories, right? Maximum impact, adrenaline excellence. This is what it's about. Bracket busting and whatever change, right? We don't care, or we want to change that, right? But let's start with the fans. The fans in Taiwan, the fans in Miami, the fans in Phoenix. I think that is what this tournament is about, right? Like growing the game and getting that experience. Shawn, you were at Phoenix, but you followed all the fans throughout the world. What can you tell me about the passion you saw on those stadiums?
Oh man, I mean, I think that they picked the right venues, all four of them, for this WBC because, and you're so right. Like this tournament, this WBC is about like spotlighting world baseball and like showing off the cultures and the fans that we see about with baseball all around the world. So to be able to see the fans in the Tokyo Dome and how loud but also respectful and like into the game the Japanese fans are, and then to go over to Taiwan where I mean it was a party the entire time from first pitch to the end of the game, no matter if Taiwan was winning or losing. Like that was the first time a lot of American fans, like all of the Western Hemisphere, both North American, Latin American, like all of our fans got to see Taiwanese baseball for the first time. And then you go to Phoenix, where it's really close to Mexico. And so the Mexico-US game was electric. And then you go over to Miami, where, I mean, you had all of the fans there from every team. So
You want to know why Juan Carlos picked Mexico to win that game against the US?
Why?
This happened last WBC where they played at Arizona, and it was 80% Mexicans and 20% Americans at the ballpark.
So it was a home game for them, basically, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah,
but
it was a home game again this time.
Yeah, but also the fans were great, but the players became fans in some occasions. Like you were there when Ken Griffey Jr. was taking batting practice, and everyone's a fan when Shohei Ohtani was taking batting practice. Everyone was a fan. So he made a fan out of people in the stadium around the world. I think it checked all the boxes in terms of fan engagement. Really fun. And we had to select a couple of big surprises. I think one of the biggest one was Australia beating Korea, right? Korea was, everyone said easy group, Japan, Korea, that there's no question there. How did you see that, Shawn?
Oh yeah, I mean, I said that multiple times. I said that if it finished like the way it had to finish was Japan and Korea, and then Australia right in the middle, and then Czech Republic and China at the bottom. I said if it finished anything other than that, it'd be a massive historic surprise for one of those countries. And I mean, that's what we saw with Australia. This was the biggest, greatest performance in Australian baseball history to make it out of the pool stage for the World Baseball Classic. I mean, you saw like all of the Australian Twitter accounts, like they were saying this was the biggest thing ever for them. And one of the biggest disappointments for Korean baseball. So I was shocked, but I was really excited to see the Australian team, which was one of their weaker teams that they've ever brought to the WBC be able to do that.
But they batted like crazy, man. It was like,
Oh yeah,
yeah, they batted like crazy. And the big disappointment was the Korean pitching, because funnily enough, Korea led all the teams in the WBC in hitting. Like average, a lot of categories, Korea was the leader in hitting, but the pitching failed disastrously. So that was one of the biggest surprises ever, and that game was incredible. A lot of back and forth. That home run in the eighth inning. So great game. And Shawn,
yeah.
I want your view on this, because some people blame them. Some people say, hey, they did their job. U.S. pitching staff. Do you play them whatever? Like that was not the biggest factor? Do you think they did what they needed to do? Where would you place the U.S. pitching staff?
Yeah, it's hard because I think we'd be lying if we said that that the U.S. has the pitchers that they want at the tournament. Like, American fans are in two different camps. They're either like, oh, well, we shouldn't have won because we didn't have our best pitching, or on the other side of it, where it's like, oh, this tournament doesn't matter because our pitchers don't even go. So I don't think that. I think if you got to be real with yourself in that, like, the pitchers that show up are the pitchers that need to show up. Like, they're the ones that are on the team. They're the ones that want to play, and that's the pitchers that we need to have there.
For all the teams, right? Like, for all the teams had some significant pitchers that didn't go, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, you look almost at any of the top teams, and everyone had at least one pitcher or at least one top player that they couldn't play. Even Japan had Seiya Suzuki, who, not a pitcher, but one of their 3-hole hitter didn't play, and yet they won the tournament. So I don't think, once the rosters are set, you can't use that as an excuse. Like, whoever is on the team is on the team. And so I was disappointed with the way that some of the pitchers pitched. But with who we had, I think it was what we expected. In the final, it wasn't the pitching, it was the offense that didn't come up.
Three runs, short, right? So. Yeah.
I mean, it was supposed to be the best lineup we've ever seen, and we only scored 3 runs. So
yeah. How did you see the pitching staff from the U.S., Juan Carlos?
The guys are there. We can't what if after the fact. Those guys are proven pitchers. They're good. And they just lost by 1 run. I mean, it is a whatever. I don't think we need like the Verlanders and the big pitchers to be in it. I think the U.S. can still win with this type of rotation.
Well, for whatever it's worth, they were 6th in ERA and 5th in WHIP. So it wasn't like they were disastrous, right? They had a bad game against Mexico. They had a bad game against Venezuela, but for the most part, they did their job, right? Including that final game. Like Shawn said, you can't expect that number of runs from that lineup. One thing that we had talked on our preview, Shawn, was that I asked you, what type of game do you envision the U.S. losing? And you said, oh, I imagine a high-scoring game, right? Which was the case with Mexico, right? But this Japan game was low-scoring, which we never would have thought with that lineup that there would be a low-scoring game. But I don't think that was a major cause on them winning or losing the tournament.
I agree. I think that this bullpen was, full of top tier, like, all-star arms. And like you said, Juan Carlos, like, the guys that are there, once the rosters are set, like, that's who we have. And so I don't think there's any need to speculate on, oh, it should have been this guy, or wish it would have been this guy, because no other country does that. It's just the U.S. that we need to, like, we just need to get over the fact that like some of the players won't pitch. Hopefully in the future they will, but with these guys, I think they pitched how they were supposed to.
And it's funny because in some teams the worst pitcher was their best pitcher, right? Like Berrios for Puerto Rico, disastrous start. Julio Urias from Mexico didn't have a good outing, right? So there's no guarantee that your best pitcher will have a quality start in these games. One thing that people complained a lot was the tournament format, right? Like Cuba finished fourth with 3-3. Venezuela had 4-2, which much more quality opponents. They finished fifth, right? Puerto Rico 3-2, much more quality opponents. I mean, Cuba's victories were Australia, Chinese Taipei, and Panama, and they finished fourth, right? So to me, you can only play whoever they put in front of you, right? You cannot play outside of your bracket. But is the tournament format something that needs to change, or is it whatever? Or how do you see the tournament format, Juan Carlos?
I think it's okay. I think it's not perfect, but I mean, you will probably want more teams, but we're kind of scratching here, including like Czech Republic and teams that they don't have a chance. But I mean, you got to fill the bracket, and you got to have an even number, and that works for travel and logistics and TV and all those things. So I think they have to form the format with the teams and all the logistics and everything that involves bringing players and all the travel from Japan all the way to Miami. I just can't even imagine if the U.S. will have to travel all the way to Japan for the final.
That might happen. That might happen. If the baseball in Japan keeps growing, the final might be in Japan in the future.
Yeah, and they might start saying, "Hey, I mean, come on."
We did it in your side. Come over to ours, right? But the thing is, there was no seeding. And one of the major complaints is the Group D had 3 of the top 5. So one of them was guaranteed to be eliminated. Will the Dominican Republic get out of any of the other groups? That's the major complaint, right? How do you see it, Shawn? Should there be a change of format, or is it whatever?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's two things. I think it's both the seating and the locations. I think it's both of those things. I think the biggest complaints were that there was the pool of death in Pool D. We knew that one of the top teams was not going to make it to the quarterfinals, while we had other, like in Pool A and B, a couple teams that may be lower tier but had a chance to make it out. But I mean, I think it's what you said, is that you play who's in front of you. The seeding can be better, I think, but I don't think it's ever going. I think there's always going to be complaints as long as these pools are in different locations around the world, because just like you said, Juan Carlos, like you got travel, you have to worry about different teams and players from other leagues going to totally different time zones. So it's not like the FIFA World Cup to where it's all in one city or one state or country. If it was like that, and if we ever got to like that in the future, then we really could do a full like lottery seating where it would be perfectly even. But until then, and we have East Asian like teams and countries playing, and all the way in the Western Hemisphere, like totally different parts of the world. Until then, I don't think people are going to be happy with the seating every year.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the American side, right? Those seem to be tougher, right? So people, if Japan wins 2 more, people, oh wait, they have an easier path to get there. They're more rested. We had to nuke it out with Venezuela and Mexico, right? And Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, US. So it's loaded, and while they don't have that same path, so I don't see it changing for now. But
Or could they have like a last bullet game, like the best team eliminated from the Western Hemisphere with the best team eliminated from the Eastern Hemisphere have a one playoff?
But then
Well,
they
you
have to
can't.
travel
That
because they
yeah,
play at different sides. So it's kind of yeah, it's
that
complicated.
it messes up the rest of the bracket. So
Yeah.
never mind.
maybe
Never mind.
maybe when
That,
what like Sean said, when everything is in one side, then
Yeah.
that might happen, right? But I don't think it decided who won, right? Because
no.
I mean, Japan had to play Mexico, almost lost. Japan had to play the US, tough game, right? And they won the games that they had to win. Those games would maybe the format was different, might have been the same games, right? It all depends on of too many factors. So once the playoff start, I think the format is not as important. Okay,
Yeah.
Duque Herbert, you you know this name. Uh,
Yeah.
there were other signings during the World Baseball Classic. There were other signings, but this one is the one that most I think says what the tournament dream, right, is for many players and for many fans. Like, oh, who's this kid? You know, I've never seen him. He's never played out of Nicaragua. Uh, can you tell us about him, Sean? What do you
Yeah.
remember? Like he pitched for the fans, right? He had never pitched outside of Nicaragua professional league, and they brought him in. He had to face Juan Soto, Julio Rodriguez, and Manny Machado. Uh, he destroyed them, right? So, is this not the what we like about this tournament?
Yeah, that was the craziest thing for me when I pulled up. I mean, it was after the game, probably like an hour or so, 2 hours after the game, and I like looked on Twitter and I saw from one of the Nicaraguan reporters that I follow. He was like, he signed after the game. A scout came up to him, stopped him before he even left the stadium to say like, "Hey, like you impressed us. Like we'd love to sign you." It was, correct me if I'm wrong, it was the Tigers, I believe,
Tigers, yeah, the
that they
Tigers.
signed with. Which is, I mean, it's so cool. That's the dream, like of any baseball player, to be stopped by a scout after a game and just be like, "Yep, we want to sign you to the big leagues." So, I mean, and he did it against the best of the best. So, but against Juan Soto, Manny Machado, you said it was J Rod as well, Julio
Yeah, right, yeah, it
Rodriguez.
was the second bat. Yeah,
I mean, those are three of the
yeah.
best hitters in the entire league. So it was cool. It was really cool to see that. That's one of my favorite parts about the World Baseball Classic is a lot of fans get to see these players for the first time, but also scouts and teams get to see these players for the first time, whether it's
And
out of Dominican Republic or Nicaragua or anything like that.
and like a good movie, we saw the flip side too. We saw the Canada pitcher against the US. He
Yeah.
was like really hyped. Like he had all this emotion that he wanted to do good. He only got one out. Um, and it kind of hurt, right? Seeing him like
Yeah.
a struggle, but you know, this is life, right? And the World Baseball Classic delivered uh everything that you could want.
Yeah. Another one that did sign, by the way, is Mitch Nunborn from Australia. He's one of their starting pitchers. I think he's 25 years old. Baseball America put out a top 10 like international prospects, like the international players that are not with affiliated teams. He was on that list. He was number 10, and he signed with the Phillies just a couple days ago.
Oh,
So
that's good.
that was really cool because he did really well against. I think it was first Czech Republic, but then also did well against Korea.
And also this, I don't know if you saw it, Sniper. There's this Australian pitcher. I think it was Australian that he posted his thought process during his pitching to Otani. Yeah, like
Yeah,
he was like,
that was
okay,
funny.
yeah, because that's the highlight of his life, right? And those
Yeah, that
moments
was
you
so
would
cool.
never get that in MLB, right? You only get the chance in this type of tournament. So,
Oh yeah.
is this a great tournament? Is this an exhibition? So one of the arguments of the people who say, hey, I don't take this seriously is the pitch limits. So the pitch limits kind of like say this is not a real tournament because people don't there's too many restrictions. If it were a real tournament, there would not be any restrictions. Do you think this decided anything, or do you think it's whatever it's the time of the year decides this, not the tournament, and there shouldn't be any change on the pitch limit? How do you see it, Juan Carlos?
I think that right now it has to be that way. Right now, if you want the tournament to grow, it has to be that way. Because we can't have, if the Americans are not ready for it, or the MLB players are not ready for having their pitchers throw 7-8 innings. But we can't have the other teams having their best pitchers throw 8 to 9 innings. That would not be equal. So it's got to be this way right now. In the future, I hope that that's not the case anymore. That the Classic is so important that yes, let's go all in. We don't care. Like Paris Saint-Germain don't care if Messi play in the World Cup. They actually, go ahead. But we're not at that point yet.
Break a leg, not literally, right? But yeah. So Shawn, what's your view on the pitch limits?
Yeah, I think for now, for me, it's for this tournament, at least it was whatever. I don't think that the pitch limits were what caused, like you said, any team to win over another. I think the bigger issue for me, if we want to just talk about something that maybe should be more of an immediate change, isn't the pitch limits put forth by the tournament, because we see pitch limits or like different rules in different leagues that if you're aware of, the coaches can plan for that. I think the bigger issue is, for example, Mark DeRosa, the U.S. manager, he was told by the teams that, hey, when you pitch this guy, he has to pitch this much, or he can't pitch this much. Or if once this pitcher gets up to go throw in the bullpen, he needs to go in the game. That I didn't like as much, because that wasn't even the rules for the tournament, but it was MLB clubs putting like very specific restrictions on specific players and pitchers. So that just makes putting together the pitching staff and like strategizing through the game so much harder for him.
The rotations.
I don't know.
The rotations. I think major league teams ask that Stroman pitch certain day. So he had to be the initial day pitcher just so he could meet that. So not only when, they also decided the dates, right? So if you're going to use it twice, use it this Thursday and these are specific days, right? So it takes a lot from the strategy of the tournament, because you might say, I don't need him versus Nicaragua. I might better save him right against Venezuela or against Dominican Republic, but you need to pitch him where the major league team says. So yeah, that's a big issue, and it the thing is, this grew the fan base around the world. So MLB benefits from this. They should see it that way, right? Because on the other side, Japan in the final game, they didn't care about pitch limits. They put one pitcher, right? They took the other one. They didn't need to go to the full limit. So I don't think it decided anything. But Shawn, this one, I want your view. I want your opinion. Tria Turner's Grand Slam.
Oh man,
this is painful for a Venezuela fan, but what was the emotion like? What was the emotion like? You watching this game? You're reporting on the game, but you're rooting for your team, and you're losing, and then this happens. What? Oh yeah. What crossed your minds during those times?
Yeah, so I was in Miami for the semifinals and the final. So I wasn't there for the quarterfinals, unfortunately, because I would have loved to be there for that game. But I was I was screaming on the couch at home watching that home run. He had probably the best best numbers, best tournament of any U.S. hitter. He would have been our MVP if we won the championship. But it was just, I knew how strong the Venezuelan team was. Leading up to this tournament, I knew that they were underrated. I had picked them to make it out of the pool. And so I wasn't surprised that they made it that far. And when they pulled ahead and were ahead a lot of the game, most of the game, like I wasn't surprised, but I was frustrated because I just thinking about the U.S. team with this lineup not making it to the final was frustrating. But then he he just crushed that ball
Yeah,
with
no
the bases
doubt.
loaded. It was
Yeah.
it was like, I mean, it was probably the biggest hit from Team USA that in the World Baseball Classic up to that point. Like, obviously, I think the biggest moment was the Adam Jones catch in last WBC, but this was right up there next to it. This was huge.
Yeah, we have another candidate for that title, right? But
Yeah.
that, I mean, I think as a hitter, he had the best tournament out of any team, right? Like 4 home runs in 5 games. Like in 7 at bats, I think he had 4 home runs, something like that. Completely in a zone, clutch. You know that moment that, and you see how much it meant for the players, right? Like they
Yeah.
were not in an exhibition mode, and we're gonna talk a little bit on a little bit later, but it meant a lot to the players. So
Did you see the faces after of the team after he hit it? Like when they were he was rounding third coming home. Did you see those pictures?
yeah, and
Even like Mike Trout and Mookie Betts were like, it was crazy.
and the faces on the Venezuelan players too. They were destroyed, man. They were winning the game.
Yeah.
They were destroyed, man. That was awesome. So one game that changed all the brackets, that changed the script, was the Puerto Rico versus Dominican Republic game, right? That game had a little bit of everything. Juan Carlos, how you had selected Dominican Republic to win the whole tournament. This game ensured that didn't happen. So talk to me about that game, what you saw, what you experienced on that game.
Well, that game was from the beginning. I noticed the difference in approach from the PR team and the Dominican team, where I saw the anxiety on the Dominican players and that show on their game. Like Julio Rodriguez is like a Gold Glove caliber center fielder, and see the ball go past him, it's like, what is going on? I mean, I was happy, but what is going on here? It was a great game. I'll remember this one for a long time. It certainly meant a lot, and it's a game that I most enjoyed for sure.
So one of the things that happened was that game showed a lot about what the World Baseball Classic is about, right? Like you can't win on paper, right? You got to go and play 100% because the other team is playing 100%, right? And there was some nervousness or maybe some overconfidence. I think the Dominican Republic had a better team, but they didn't look prepared. The game plan from Jadier Molina was great on how to keep the batters off balance, but there were some mistakes. I mean, Machete Maldonado bunt single, you know that yeah, that's I mean, I
That was awesome.
Shawn is a diehard Astros fan. I think he has never seen that, right? And
Never.
Right?
I mean, we had Maldonado and Christian Vasquez score, I think, in that inning, and I did not expect that to come from both of the former, current and former Astros catchers.
Yeah, that was crazy. So yeah, really the Lindor inside the park homer. You mentioned the error by Julio Rodriguez, but the way Lindor ran those bases, man, it was effort 100%, right? So no holding back. Great game, great game. There were a lot of great games. So this one boasted a lot of brackets, but at the end of that game, was one of the most impactful moments of all the WBC, right? The one that had the whole world talking about it, right? And it was unfortunately injuries. That was not the only injury, right? We had the Altua injury, but the one that had the debate running, all the talk shows talking about the World Baseball Classic was this injury to Edwin Diaz. It seemed like he finished the game. His brother was the first one there, but he was not. He didn't look happy. He didn't look in like he started jumping, but for 3 seconds he slumped down. Uh, the type of injury, it's the tendon below the patella. It's supposed to be about the leg extending. You're not supposed to injure that jumping. So there was this talk. Um, was that tendon hanging by a thread already? Did he already feel it um, before the celebration started? Right? Like, yeah, the way he walked out of the mound. Um, but it started the talk. Shawn, is the World Baseball Classic worth it?
Yeah. So with the Edwin Diaz injury, it was the most unfortunate moment like it could have been. It was worst case scenario because we had this game that in Dominican Republic versus Puerto Rico that the entire baseball world was looking forward to. It was for even months before the tournament, everybody was looking forward to that game. Everybody knows those two teams are passionate, are loud, are energetic, and both of the teams are really, really good. So that's one of the games that everybody's been looking forward to. And then for it to be such a great game, to unite the baseball world on Twitter, and then just end with such a hard emotional ending was really tough to go from like way up here and then just drop down emotionally. For Edwin Diaz himself, like it's like what you said. I saw some reports from like doctors on Twitter that were like, yeah, I think that like it looked like this was probably something that was about to happen eventually. Like it was hanging on by a thread. You don't get that kind of injury from jumping up and down. So it wasn't even the celebrating necessarily that did it. It was just time for his knee to snap like that. It was awful timing because it was right after that game. The hard part is that a lot of people did use that as to boost their narrative that the WBC doesn't matter, or even farther than that, it's harmful, that it's bad for baseball, that we shouldn't be playing at all, or that MLB players shouldn't be joining. And it's just unfortunate because I think that this WBC grew baseball exponentially compared to the previous WBCs and a lot of, I mean, even just like MLB regular season. Like I've never seen the whole baseball world kind of come together for one tournament like they did for this WBC. So we have those narratives and those talking points every WBC. I don't think that's something that's new. Every WBC comes around and it's like, well, this is an exhibition. It doesn't matter. Like these players get hurt. But every year it keeps growing because players are bought in and coaches love it. And the fans adore this tournament because they get to represent their country. So for me, I didn't really talk about it much on Twitter because it doesn't really matter to me what people say, because I think clearly the sport of baseball, the future of it is international. If you talk to Edwin Diaz, I haven't heard from him. I guess I don't know if there's been anything afterwards, but I don't think he regrets playing in it. I don't think any of these players regret playing in it. So those are the people that you want to hear their opinions.
So, the biggest proof that the players see this as part of the process of growing the sport and the tournament is valid is normally when there's something that happens, there's some changes from the players, right? Like if there's a fight and everyone enters and there's tense suspension, the next game when there's a fight, like you see coaches holding the other players back, I don't want you to get suspended, right? All the games had these great celebrations, right? Like you mentioned, the Tria Turner had a great celebration. No one was worrying about getting hurt during the celebration, right? They were enjoying the moment. They were passionate about winning it, and so I
We
think
saw the best player in the entire world, Shohei Ohtani, after the last game, throw his hat and his glove and then jump in the arms of all of his team. That was more harmful than what Edwin Diaz's celebration was.
yes, yes, and it was great. The whole U.S. team came out, with that Turner home run. I think no one was left in the dugout. So even Griffey was hugging him. It was such a great moment, and this type of thing we wish it wouldn't happen, right? But it got the baseball world and the whole world that doesn't look into baseball commenting on this. So it had a great impact on giving visibility to the tournament, right? So I think that had a great impact. One of the things, Juan Carlos, that happened and boasted many bracket was the Group A.
Yeah.
Group A, the winner of the group had 2-2. The team that's relegated got 2-2 also. Everyone expected Netherlands to advance. They didn't. So quickly, tell me about this group.
So what happens, when you have 5 teams, there's this possibility that everybody could be 2-2, and that happened. Obviously, you want balance and to be competitive. But this is the ultimate. This group was exactly balanced.
You were gonna say shit show, I know it, but yeah, you can't say that, man.
But I mean, there are obviously you can't go by. I beat this team and I beat you, so I get to be first. But so they had to go get creative in what the tiebreakers were going to be, and this didn't push the limits, because trust me, there are others.
It was runs against was the tiebreaker,
right?
So yeah,
and there were other tiebreakers after that. If they went down to batting average, and at the end, they will cast lots, like they will put papers.
Oh yeah, they had this
and pick. So I mean, it's the Cuba won the pool by arithmetic calculations,
two Excel sheets, and yeah.
But I mean, it's I think it was a possibility that it happened. So on one hand, it looks wrong that everybody is tied, but at the same time, it was
fun.
Balanced.
It was fun. It was tense, right? But talking about fun, what about this guy, Shawn? The catches from Randy Arozarena. I mean, the game versus Puerto Rico, that catch by Randy, I think, saved the game for Mexico against Japan. He had 2 more catches, which were incredible. Like you didn't think he was gonna get that, and he did, right? So, what was it fun seeing him? You were there. You were there for that game. How was the stadium when he got those balls and did that pose? What was the energy?
Oh man, it was. I mean, I need to find a different word, because we've been using the same word for the entire WBC, but it was electric. It was so much fun to watch him in person. I actually got a chance to be on the field because of I was able to go for the podcast, with media credentials, and I got to not talk with him on the field, but got to stand next to him with the interviews and stuff. And every game he would come out in his cowboy boots and his big sombrero before the game and go run out and take fly balls in his boots. He's just he is entertainment. He himself is just so entertaining. So when he got the chance, he made those catches and he had those massive hits all of the pool stage and past the pool stage. I've said this on my podcast. He was the face of baseball for 1 week. He made that his tournament. So it was so much fun. And even past the fun part of it is, I think, the impact that he made on Mexican baseball. A lot of reporters and writers have talked about it. Mexican baseball has grown a lot just in the last couple of weeks and is expected to a lot more now because of this Mexican team. And he has a big part in that, because I mean, he's not even Mexican born. He's from Cuba, got to become a naturalized Mexican citizen and now represents that country with so much passion. And so I think the team and the country kind of revolved. Then they wrapped themselves around him and they love him so much. So it was really cool.
It was funny. Someone pointed out that the rankings for baseball came out this week, and Mexico is ranked in the top 5, I think, right? And while in football, they're ranked 15th, right? So there was this okay, is this a change of the guard, right?
Well, it's funny because I tweeted out, I was like, this is the best Mexican national baseball team in history. And then a bunch of Mexican fans in my comments were like, you don't have to conclude baseball. This is the best Mexican national team ever in history, even soccer.
Yeah, so it was so fun watching him play, the exuberance, the bravado, and they had Japan on the ropes, right? So that was such a great game, man. We were talking about if the US won, Tria Turner would have been the MVP. If Mexico had won it, there's no doubt Randy would have won the MVP, right? So we got to recognize him. And to finish off, Shawn, you mentioned the catch by Adam Jones. We talked about Tria Turner's grand slam. What about this moment? Shohei Ohtani versus Mike Trout, 9th inning, 1-run game. Ohtani, who had been DH, goes to the bullpen. And it so happens that the last at bat for the US is Mike Trout. This is almost a Disney movie, right? So
yeah,
it was one of the most talked about at bats I've ever seen being dissected, and it lived up to the hype. Like it got to 3-2, right? And you didn't know what was going to happen. You wouldn't be surprised if Mike Trout blasted it outside the stadium, right? How did this feel and look in the stadium?
Yeah, so this one I was in the stadium for, and it was, I mean, there's never been a better script for just a single at bat than this was. I mean, this was like Babe Ruth against Randy Johnson, but they're teammates on the same MLB team and they're playing at the same time.
So we won't see this on MLB, right? Barring a trade, we won't see this on MLB, only on the World Baseball Classic, right?
This may be the only time we ever see those two face each other, and it was perfect. You said it, like it was full count. It was the 9th inning. Shohei Ohtani threw multiple fastballs over 100 miles per hour. Mike Trout made it. He let it get to full count. I think it was probably like the 7th inning in the stadium when you could hear the buzz of people talking. They were like reading the scorecard, like, okay, well, if these guys get up and then if one guy gets on, then it maybe by the 9th inning, Mike Trout will be able to be up sometime in the 9th. But I don't think anybody really expected him to be up with 2 outs in the 9th inning. It was just perfect. Everybody was talking about it. We were talking about this last summer when both players said that they were playing. Like, oh, we'd love to see this. Don't think it's going to happen, but maybe. So it was the perfect script. It was the perfect way to end the best WBC ever. And for Shohei Ohtani to strike him out like that, and just with that breaking ball that just swept across the plate, and then for him to just fling his glove and his bat. And one other thing is that catcher that was in for Japan had never caught Shohei Ohtani before. So he had never caught that pitch before. So it was just layer on layer deep with that narrative. It was perfect.
No, it's incredible because, baseball is a sport of tradition, right? So Shohei throws his glove, then he throws his hat. He faces the people coming out the dugout, and then he remembers baseball tradition. I have to hug the catcher first. And then he turns around and hugs the catcher.
You're so right.
Yeah, that's tradition. The pitcher always hugs the catcher first, right? So he didn't lose his mind at the moment, but it was a great moment. Juan Carlos, your team had already been eliminated, but Was the moment just as electric for you?
Yeah, I mean, that pitch was so nasty. I just can't believe, the best hitter in the world couldn't hit it. I think he probably knew what the pitch was, and he still couldn't hit it. It just broke so hard on him that he had no chance, and this is the perfect, you know, like that
And yeah,
moment. You can put it on, on social media, TikTok, as the promo
Oh
for the
yeah.
next WBC, and
I
that's
mean,
gonna be the promo for the next WBC.
you could make a movie and that is the ending, and people, oh, that's who they went too far. Who can believe that's what's going to
Yeah,
happen? Yeah,
yeah.
too scripted, but that was what happened, and yeah, I think it was a maximum impact. Japan went crazy. Um, all around the prime minister was doing the nut celebration, the pepper grinder, right? So yeah, so
Did
please,
you see what Trout said? Did you see what Trout said after the
no,
game?
no. What did he say?
In the press conference or in the interviews afterwards with some of the people that were interviewing him, they asked him about that at bat, and he said, "Well, Shohei Ohtani won round one."
Oh,
So,
Oh.
okay. Yeah, that's a good thing because many players have already said, I'm gonna be back. I like this atmosphere.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah, count on me for 26, right?
and both Ohtani and Trout have said that they're going to be back. So I can't wait, and it's only 3 years away. So
Wait, do you think Trout will develop pitching? No, I don't think so. But anyway,
yeah, we'll have Trout on the
you
mound with
imagine
Ohtani up to
ninth
bat.
inning, Trout's out. Yeah, that would be great. But yeah, he's gonna finish the game and tell you know how he feels. You know how he feels. No, I don't think that will happen, but it will be great. So Shawn, please follow him, Shawn Spradling, his podcast WBC Central. I suppose is going to a hiatus, but we got the Baseball is Never Boring podcast. And from what I understood, Shawn, you're going international, right? You're not gonna stop on this tournament, and you're gonna keep.
Yeah.
It seemed you had a flavor of what you can see all around the world, and you like what you saw, right? So, it's great. There's a big audience for that, and we hope you continue growing. And once you get to MLB Network, we'll remember your start, right?
Thank you very much. I would love to. I mean, yeah, I'm not stopping anytime soon. Like this, I've said this on my Twitter as well. It's like the WBC is the peak. It's like the climax of international baseball, but it's not. But international baseball is not limited to the WBC. So there's so much more that we have throughout the year, every year to follow in all of these different leagues. So I definitely want to make it to San Juan some year to watch some baseball.
Oh yeah, when you come down here, just let us know, and I'll have Juan Carlos pay your meal and all that. So thanks for everything, Shawn. Please follow him. You can help us by subscribing to our YouTube channel, and many blessings.